The calm before the storm never lasted long in the heavenly south. As war loomed and ancient powers stirred, the greatest cultivators gathered beneath one roof, each carrying their own ambitions, grudges, and secrets. And on that day, when fate began to turn, Han Li stepped out of seclusion, unknowingly walking into a meeting that would decide the destiny of an entire continent. If you enjoy my way of explaining and storytelling, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really motivates me to keep creating. Han Li gently pinched the azure flame, dancing at the tip of the sword, letting it rest within his blazing fingers. Yet in the very next instant, a vast and violent force erupted from within the flame, mercilessly repelling his grasp. His fingertips went numb as the azure flame stubbornly clung to the sword, utterly unmoved. Han Li froze in shock, but a realization quickly flashed through his mind. He spread his flaming palm wide, allowing only the violet flames to envelop the azure fire. His hand remained motionless as torrents of dazzling violet light poured forth from his fingers, intertwining with the azure glow. Purple and blue radiance pulsed together, surging rhythmically like a living entity. This stalemate persisted for a full quarter of an hour before Han Li finally let out a soft sigh and shook his hand. The violet flames vanished without leaving a trace, leaving behind nothing but a brilliant, translucent ember of azure fire floating silently in the air. This peculiar flame was far more troublesome than he had anticipated. Though the purple apex flames were capable of contending with it, refining the azure flame proved exceedingly difficult. After a moment of contemplation, Han Li lifted his hand and pointed toward the flying sword before him. A muffled rumble of thunder echoed as arcs of golden lightning burst forth from the blade. The instant the lightning appeared, it shot toward the azure ember in countless tendrils, wrapping around it completely. The ember, no larger than a pea, glowed intensely as it absorbed the golden lightning with eerie ease like a bottomless abyss. Its brilliance surged, swelling rapidly until it reached the size of an egg. As this unfolded, Han Li's eyes shimmered with an icy blue glow as he stared unblinkingly at the azure ember, devouring the lightning. His expression shifted subtly as he stood motionless for an indeterminate length of time. At last he sighed softly. The blue light faded from his eyes, leaving hesitation etched upon his face. Moments later, resolve flickered within his gaze. He nodded, once opened his mouth and inhaled the remnant violet flame still lingering upon the flying sword. Freed from the suppression of the purple apex flames, the azure fire surged violently, engulfing the entire sword in the blink of an eye. Because the treasure was bound to Han Li's soul, searing pain immediately washed over him, draining the color from his face. Yet he paid it no heed. With a flick of his fingers, streaks of azure sword chi shot forth from his hand, slashing toward the flame. Just like the divine devilbane lightning, the sword chi was swallowed whole without resistance. Han Li, however, remained calm. He continued circulating spiritual power through his meridians, launching one wave of sword streaks after another, relentlessly pouring energy into the azure ember. Gradually, the azure flames treated the sword chi as fuel. They roared to life, surging violently as their radiance grew ever more dazzling. By this point, nearly a third of Han Li's magic power had already been consumed. When the lantern-like flames had expanded to a considerable size, Han Li finally smiled and ceased his assault. Instead, he beckoned lightly, summoning the sword chi hidden within the fireball. A gust of wind swept through the chamber. The bamboo cloud-swarm sword slipped effortlessly free of the azure flames, circling once through the air before landing neatly in Han Li's hand. Lowering his head, Han Li examined the blade. Seeing it completely free of flame, its surface crystalline and translucent, he could not help but smile. As expected, he murmured, "No matter how miraculous these flames are, there is a limit to how much spiritual power they can absorb. Once saturated with sufficient azure sword chi, they can be manipulated." With that, he slapped his hands together, and the sword vanished in a flash of light. Han Li then turned his gaze toward the floating azure fireball. Reaching out, he lightly tapped it, sending a thread of his spiritual sense inside. The fireball trembled, then slowly began to rotate, pulsing with soft light. Han Li raised an eyebrow and attempted to command it more precisely. At first, it merely wobbled back and forth. After several attempts, he finally managed to guide it into the air, where it sluggishly drifted 3 meters forward at a crooked angle. Seeing this, Han Li stroked his chin and muttered to himself, "Given the overwhelming might of the azure flames, it would be an unforgivable waste not to make use of them." Although he could forcefully control the flame through the vast quantities of azure essence sword qi it had absorbed, the flaws of this method were obvious. After all, these flames were not something he had personally refined. Compared to the celestial ice flames controlling them, felt stiff and unnatural. Han Li frowned as he stared at the azure fireball, his thoughts drifting. Suddenly he reached into his storage pouch and retrieved a flawlessly smooth rib bone along with a faint yellow bottle. These were the Bone Sage's jade slip recording the profound yin arts, and the magic vessel once used to absorb demon beast souls. He opened the bottle, releasing a cloud of black qi. Reaching into the air, he grasped it and drew it into his palm. Under the guidance of his spiritual sense, the ghostly qi flowed into the rib bone in his other hand. In moments, the bone turned pitch black and floated into the air, radiating a sinister glow. Seeing this, Han Li pressed the bone to his forehead and rapidly sifted through the contents of the profound yin arts, searching for a specific technique. When his spiritual sense finally landed upon the yin fire lightning technique, his expression brightened with joy. He immediately began reading it with careful attention. Despite its unassuming name, this technique rivaled the heaven-wide corpse fire of the profound yin arts in power. Yet it was not a forbidden devil Dao art. Instead, it was a secret refinement method for creating lightning beads similar to the heavenly lightning seeds Han Li had once used. According to the description, once successfully refined, yin fire lightning possessed terrifying destructive might, surpassing even the heaven-wide corpse fire. In principle, condensing such a massive quantity of pure yin fire into an explosive form required auxiliary materials to stabilize it, transforming it into a devastating weapon. Unfortunately, these lightning beads were consumable single-use items burdened by countless restrictions during refinement. Moreover, only cultivators capable of controlling lightning-attributed spiritual power could attempt the process. For this reason, neither Zenith Yin nor the Bone Sage had ever succeeded in refining them. When Han Li had first encountered this technique, he had paid it little attention. Though he controlled divine Devilbane lightning, he had sought only simple, easily mastered techniques, such as Yin Devil Execution. But now faced with this troublesome azure flame, memories of the Yin Fire Lightning refinement method resurfaced. Originally, refining Yin Fire Lightning demanded immense spiritual power with an abysmally low success rate. Few cultivators could wield lightning, and the resulting weapons were fleeting in nature. Though Han Li could not cultivate the profound yin arts, his current cultivation and understanding freed him from rigidly following its refinement methods. All he needed was to modify the process using the azure flames as the core medium. Given that their might rivaled even the purple apex flames, the result would surely be no weaker than true yin fire lightning. In the past, he had briefly considered using the celestial ice flames or even the purple apex flames for such refinement. Yet both were too difficult to cultivate and too precious to squander. Lacking sufficient quantities, he had abandoned the idea. Now, however, the azure flames, neither storable nor refinable, presented the perfect opportunity. With this plan in mind, Han Li searched through his storage pouch. Before long, he gathered all the materials required to refine the lightning beads. None were rare. They were common ingredients used in pill and artifact refinement. After laying them out one by one before him, Han Li faced the flickering azure fireball, his expression solemn. Slowly he raised both hands. With a series of thunderous rumbles, 2 arcs of lightning burst from his palms, striking directly into the azure flames. Within the main hall of the drifting cloud sect's encampment, Lulo sat motionless upon his seat, his expression utterly calm. Several core formation disciples stood before him, including the red-robed cultivator Song. All of them looked uneasy. Lulo spoke evenly. "Marshal Nephew Duan has your marshal." Uncle Han still not emerged from seclusion after all these days. Reporting to Marshal Uncle Duan replied, "Marshal Uncle Han has remained in seclusion for 2 full months. Junior Marshal Sister Song and I have guarded his chamber from the beginning. He has not stepped out once." Lulo sighed softly. "When your Marshal Uncle Han entered seclusion, he informed me that he needed time to prepare for the coming war and requested that we not disturb him. However, the Mulan forces have nearly finished gathering and are about to mobilize." He continued gravely, "A meeting of high-grade cultivators is being convened. They delayed it specifically for your Marshal Uncle Han's sake. But now that the 3 great cultivators have arrived in Skyfirst City, they have formally requested his attendance. This meeting is restricted to mid-nascent soul cultivators. That alone speaks volumes about your martial Uncle Han's importance. We can delay no longer. Moreover, I believe this meeting will determine the final strategy for the battle. If someone from our sect attends, it will bring us tremendous benefit. Hearing this, the cultivators present all forced bitter smiles. After a brief hesitation, Cultivator Song spoke anxiously. But Martial Uncle Han must be at a critical juncture in his seclusion. If we disturb him recklessly, could it not ruin all his efforts? The middle-aged cultivator with the thin mustache also frowned. Even so, Martial Uncle Lu, the matter can no longer be postponed. The meeting is tomorrow. If Martial Uncle Han does not attend, what seems to be the matter here? A gentle voice suddenly echoed throughout the hall. Luluo's face immediately lit up with delight. Soon after those words echoed through the hall, Han Li suddenly appeared at the entrance, his expression calm and unhurried. As the core formation cultivators hurriedly bowed in greeting, Luluo rose from his seat with a broad smile. Junior Martial Brother Han, you've finally emerged from seclusion. This truly is wonderful news. Han Li smiled faintly and replied, I wasn't entirely finished. I had intended to continue my seclusion, but the matter of the Mulan troubled me, so I came to take a look. It seems I arrived at just the right moment. Haha. It appears Junior Martial Brother Han has already heard our martial nephews, Luluo said with a chuckle. Quite a few people have been hoping to see you lately. The others are of little consequence. But the three great cultivators have personally invited you to attend a high-echelon meeting. Junior Martial Brother Han, you must go. He paused, his expression turning solemn. Our drifting cloud sect has committed the majority of its strength. I do not wish to see our disciples fall in droves. Junior Martial Brother Han must listen to their arrangements for the coming war and set my mind at ease. Han Li nodded calmly. Since I now know of this matter, I will certainly visit them tomorrow. I have long wished to speak with the three great cultivators. I look forward to meeting them. His response clearly pleased Luluo, and the two soon began discussing events from the past 2 months. Midway through the conversation, Han Li's brows knit together. The spell warriors have already begun attacking the border fortresses. Luluo's smile faded as he replied gravely, That's right. In truth, it only began 4 days ago. Although casualties have been few, it clearly signals that the Mulan have completed their preparations. Han Li blinked slowly. They prepared themselves far more quickly than expected. How are our own arrangements? Surely some progress has been made. Luluo sighed. Our situation is vastly different from the Mulan. Though their spell warrior tribes are not perfectly unified, their structure is far simpler than the countless sects of the Heavenly South. Differences in cultivation methods, strength, and resources make cooperation difficult, far more so than among the Mulan. He continued, moreover, they have spent nearly a century preparing for this invasion. Compared to them, our preparations are lacking. That said, the 4 superpowers have fully committed themselves. As long as they stand together, there is still hope. Han Li rubbed the bridge of his nose, his expression darkening. Then the war could begin at any moment. Luluo nodded helplessly. Exactly. Otherwise, why would the 3 great cultivators convene a meeting of mid-nascent soul cultivators on such short notice? After all, such cultivators represent the pinnacle of strength in the Heavenly South. As the other cultivators listened, their expressions gradually turned heavy. Han Li soon shifted the conversation, asking about the recent arrangements within the drifting cloud sect. The disciples responded all at once, explaining how squads had been formed and how continuous group combat drills were being held day and night. Han Li merely nodded. Such preparations were only natural. Wars were never fought alone. No matter how powerful an individual might be, they could not withstand the combined assault of thousands of trained cultivators. Ordinarily high-grade cultivators would not be forced into such peril. As long as they avoided being surrounded, they could unleash large-scale techniques to slaughter low-grade cultivators in droves. Thus, restraining enemy high-grade cultivators was of paramount importance. This held true for both cultivators and spell warriors alike. In a clash between elites, whichever side failed to check the other's top experts was already doomed to defeat. Because of this, Han Li pondered the true purpose behind the upcoming meeting of mid-nascent soul cultivators. Beyond troop deployment, it would undoubtedly involve plans for dealing with the Mulan sages themselves. At this thought, a cold smile flickered across Han Li's lips. Over the past 2 months, he had not only purged the azure flames from all his bamboo cloudswarm swords, but had also used divine Devilbane lightning to refine the flames into 8 lightning beads. Recalling the refinement process, Han Li could not help but smile wryly. His efforts had been riddled with failure, yet it had proven to be a remarkably effective way of disposing of the troublesome azure lantern flames. After chatting a little longer, Han Li departed the hall and returned to his assigned residence to recuperate. The relentless purging and refinement over the past 2 months had taken a heavy toll on his spirit. The next morning, Han Li left the drifting cloud sect encampment and headed toward the city's center. Before long, a massive stone palace hall came into view. Skyfirst city had been erected in great haste, and even the main hall used for meetings among the 4 superpowers appeared crude and unadorned. Aside from its size, which exceeded that of the Heavenly Tao Union's hall, it was largely unremarkable, save for several core formation cultivators standing guard outside. When they sensed Han Li's approach, they swept their spiritual sense over him and immediately grew respectful. One of them stepped forward and saluted. Senior only mid-nascent soul cultivators are permitted to attend today's meeting. May I? Here. Before he could finish, Han Li casually flicked his wrist, sending a white jade slip flying toward him, the invitation he had received the day before. After inspecting it, the guard's expression changed at once. So it is Senior Han. This junior was discourteous. Please go right in. He stepped aside and opened the doors. Han Li was about to enter when his expression suddenly changed. His steps slowed as he turned his head toward a nearby side street. 2 figures were approaching, a man and a woman. The man appeared no older than 20, clad in a richly embroidered robe. His skin was flawless, his features handsome, and every movement graceful and refined. Yet his gaze wandered restlessly, his expressions shifting subtly. Fine wrinkles at the corners of his eyes betrayed an age far beyond his youthful appearance. More unsettling was the soft feminine aura that emanated from him, as though he were a woman disguised in male attire. It was deeply unnatural. Han Li's heart trembled, his expression turning solemn. This was a mid-nascent soul cultivator clearly here for the meeting. Judging by his demonic bearing, he was most likely from the Devil Dao, but which sect? As these thoughts raced through his mind, Han Li's gaze shifted to the woman walking closely beside him. At the sight of her, he could not help but exclaim softly in surprise. She was young and breathtakingly beautiful, dressed in brilliant crimson robes. Her movements were light and graceful, exuding an indescribable allure that seemed endless. Yet when Han Li recognized her face, his expression turned complicated before settling into a wry smile. It was her donghua. There was no doubt about it. That youthful eccentric could only belong to the Harmonious Bond sect, the foremost sect of the Devil Dao. In the years since Han Li had last seen her, donghua had advanced to the mid-core formation stage, a surprising achievement given her mediocre aptitude. Han Li stood silently at the entrance observing them. The guards had also noticed the pair. Several of their faces turned pale. One murmured uneasily, "I didn't expect the Harmonious Bond sect's Old Devil Gu to appear." Old Devil Gu. Han Li's mind stirred as he recalled a notorious figure. Aside from their late nascent soul cultivator, the Harmonious Bond sect possessed another infamous eccentric one, born with a bizarre constitution containing both yin and yang, allowing him to cultivate the sect's most profound Devil Dao techniques. Known as Taoist Cloudpart or Old Devil Cloudpart, he was infamous for his obsession with lust. Men or women, beauty or talent, once someone caught his eye, they were not spared. Though he rarely killed, his actions had offended countless major sects. Yet his cultivation was terrifying, and with the Harmonious Bond sect backing him, none dared retaliate. Victims were released after his indulgence, leaving their sects no choice but to swallow their humiliation. Such was his reputation that cultivators trembled at the mere mention of his name. Could this youthful man truly be that old eccentric? Though Han Li had nothing to fear, unease crept into his heart. As if sensing his gaze, the handsome youth turned toward Han Li, studying him with narrowed eyes before offering a faint smile laced with subtle seduction. A chill ran down Han Li's spine. He forced a polite smile in return. At that moment, donghua noticed him, her eyes widening in shock. The handsome man paid no heed and continued toward the hall. Han Li followed shortly after, disappearing inside. Watching his retreating figure, the youth's smile faded. He turned to donghua and asked calmly, "What is it? Do you recognize that man? Your heartbeat just quickened." Donghua's expression remained faintly unsettled as she watched Han Li disappear, but she quickly composed herself and replied calmly, "He is an old acquaintance of mine. I hadn't seen him for many years, so his sudden appearance startled me. An old acquaintance. Old Devil Cloudpart replied evenly. That early nascent soul cultivator was permitted to enter today's meeting. Judging from his youthful appearance, he should be the recently renowned elder of the Drifting Cloud sect. He continued leisurely, I hear his surname is Han, the same person you once mentioned. Could they be one and the same? Dong Xuana's complexion paled slightly at his words, yet she remained silent. A cold glint flashed through Old Devil Cloudpart's eyes. Although he let out a soft snort and dropped the subject, a faint frown lingered upon his brow. Cloudpart led her to the entrance of the palace hall, where the frightened core formation cultivators promptly allowed him through. Naturally, Dong Xuana was barred from entering and was instead escorted to a side chamber to wait. Not long after Han Li entered the palace hall, he located the meeting chamber and quickly stepped inside. The meeting room itself was sparsely arranged. Aside from several rows of massive stone pillars, the center was left empty, occupied only by 17 exquisitely crafted wooden chairs spaced several meters apart. 8 cultivators were already seated among them. Upon Han Li's arrival, some merely cast indifferent glances in his direction, others ignored him entirely, while a few remained deep in meditation. None appeared concerned with courtesy. Only one person greeted him warmly. Smiling, the man gestured and said, Fellow Taoist Han, you have emerged from seclusion at last. If you do not find it distasteful, why not sit beside me? This man was none other than Long Han, leader of the Heavenly Tao Alliance and sect master of the Phoenix Cry sect. Many thanks, Brother Long Han Li replied politely, taking the seat beside him while quietly observing the others present. Moments later, Old Devil Cloudpart entered the hall. He swept his gaze across the room, chuckled softly, and boldly took an empty seat beside a blue-robed old man who was leisurely drinking alone, holding a white jade wine cup and an emerald green pot. As Cloudpart settled beside him, a fragrant scent drifted over. The blue-robed old man immediately glared at him, cursing his misfortune under his breath. Cloudpart paid him no heed. Instead, he leisurely scanned the room, his gaze lingering on Han Li with undisguised interest, much to Han Li's discomfort. Frowning slightly, Han Li closed his eyes and adopted an expressionless facade. Even so, his thoughts churned. He could not help but wonder about the precise relationship between Dong Xuana and this old devil. Years ago, Dong Xuana had been abducted by the Harmonious Bond sect's young master and forcibly brought into the sect. Though Old Devil Cloudpart's reputation was vile, he would not prey upon his own sect's disciples. There had to be some other connection between them, otherwise he would not have brought her along. While Han Li pondered this, several more figures entered the hall in succession, all mid-nascent soul cultivators. Many were familiar to those already seated. Old grudges surfaced, and beneath polite greetings, barbed remarks and veiled mockery were exchanged. At last, Old Devil Cloudpart's gaze left Han Li. Han Li, for his part, remained still. Since he recognized none of the newcomers, he had no reason to greet them. Fellow Taoist Shattered Soul, someone suddenly exclaimed, I never expected you to attend. I hear your 9 souls technique has reached the transformation stage. Congratulations, Shattered Soul. Han Li's heart stirred and he unconsciously opened his eyes. He saw a withered, grey-robed old man being greeted familiarly by a black-robed cultivator. Smiling, the grey-robed man walked over to him. Noticing Han Li's reaction, Long Han smiled and asked softly, What is it? Has fellow Taoist Han encountered Taoist Shattered Soul before, recalling how he had slaughtered Shattered Soul's disciples? During his recent trip to the state of Yue, Han Li replied calmly, No, I merely heard Senior Marshal Brother Cheng mention him once. I was told his abilities are quite formidable. Long Han chuckled. That is no surprise. Elder Cheng once crossed blades with him and suffered a heavy loss. Naturally, the impression lingered. Still, with fellow Taoist Han's current reputation, there is no need to fear him. His expression grew serious. However, there is one among the mid-nascent soul cultivators you should avoid offending. Even the 3 great cultivators find him troublesome. Han Li frowned in surprise. Someone capable of troubling even the 3 great cultivators. Such a person exists. Long Han nodded solemnly. He once fought fellow Taoist Sunreach and severely injured him before escaping. Because of this, he is considered an existence on par with the 3 great cultivators. Unfortunately, he keeps to himself. Even with the Mulan invasion, it is uncertain whether he will appear. Han Li pressed his lips together, curiosity piqued. A cultivator capable of injuring a late nascent soul expert. No wonder he is so exceptional. Who is he? Smiling faintly, Longhan replied, You should have heard of him. His name is Eccentric Heavenvenge. Hanli smiled wryly. Eccentric Heavenvenge. Indeed, his reputation is widespread. He recalled the incident at the Sacred Tree region, where spies from both the righteous and Devil Dao factions had refrained from killing low-grade cultivators out of fear that one of them might be Heavenvenge's descendant. Blinking, Hanli chuckled lightly. That said, Brother Long and your Taoist partner are existences on par with the three great cultivators as well. Long Han shook his head. Feng Bing and I possess some strength, but alone we are no match for them. Together, however, that is a different matter. Hanli smiled, preparing to continue, when he suddenly felt a hostile gaze upon him, icy and filled with malice. His expression stiffened as vigilance surged through his mind. Turning his head, he traced the gaze to a long-bearded old man dressed in green robes. When the old man noticed Han Li looking back, he immediately withdrew his gaze and turned away as though nothing had occurred. This, however, did not ease Han Li's wariness. Instead, he continued to watch the man closely. Seeing this, Long Han smiled faintly. What is it? Does fellow Taoist Han not recognize him? Han Li replied with mild puzzlement. Brother Long seems to imply that I should. That is Elder Dongmen II, Grand Elder of the Controlling Spirit Sect, Long Han explained. He wields the greatest authority within his sect. Though I have never spoken to him directly, I have heard that his friendship with Gu Shuangpu ran deep. He continued. Although the evidence proves Gu Shuangpu was a Mulan spy, Elder Dongmen II is undoubtedly resentful toward you for killing him. You would do well to remain cautious. Han Li rubbed his nose and offered a wry smile, quietly thanking him. Within a quarter hour, nearly all the chairs had been filled. The scene was rather telling. Most Devil Dao cultivators sat on the right, while the righteous Dao occupied the left. Members of the Heavenly Dao Alliance and Nine Nations Union were scattered between both sides. Among them, Han Li spotted a familiar face, cultivator Quang of the Sailing Boundaries sect, seated among the Devil Dao. When their gazes met, Quang smiled. Han Li nodded in response. Meanwhile, Long Han transmitted information to Han Li regarding the remaining Heavenly Dao cultivators. One was a plainly dressed woman with an unremarkable appearance, the other a haggard-looking old man. Han Li glanced at them, committing their features to memory. Perhaps due to the gathering of so many powerful figures, the atmosphere gradually turned heavy. Silence fell as they coldly scrutinized one another. Each of these cultivators was a peak existence of the Heavenly South, hailing from opposing factions and harboring their own schemes. Among them, Han Li stood out as the most unusual. The old eccentrics swept their powerful spiritual sense over him, quickly discerning his comparatively shallow cultivation. Still, his fame from the past half-year had already reached all of them. Yet Han Li simply rested with his eyes closed, calm and unmoved by the oppressive atmosphere. Just as the silence deepened, three figures entered the hall, one after another, instantly drawing everyone's attention. A towering old man, clad in black robes, an old man with green hair, and a cultivator bearing a sword upon his back. Han Li's expression remained composed, but his heart began to pound. These were the three great cultivators of the Heavenly South, the only late nascent soul experts on the continent. Each was over 1,000 years old. With few exceptions, those present maintained their composure, waiting in silence for the three to speak. That's all for today's content. See you in the next part. Support me by becoming a member. It will give me more motivation. Thank you so much.